I'm gonna do the last of the fall disking today. Out there. Sealing up. It's already got that fluid in it. That's the DEF fluid. What that is, it's a filter in there, an exhaust filter in this. They inject that in it. It like deletes the pollution from the diesel or something. So they make them more environmentally friendly by injecting that in there. Something like that. This is the tank. It's kind of slow. It has a small hose on it. Pretty small hose. Ever wonder what starting a $190,000 tractor would look like? Starting it up. Just like the fancy cars, the needles go up and then they go down again. Sounds terrible though. There's all those modern computers in there driving the thing. Surprisingly, this, if you push the clutch, it has a little button clutch here, and then you can push that to put it into medium speed, and it's very like sticky. It's kind of odd for a new tractor. I mean, it's brand new too. So why is it so sticky? I think the answer to that is just don't buy computerized stuff. This thing, we're probably going to have to trade it in about 4 or 5 years. That's not very long. After that, they usually start breaking down pretty bad. And if they're computerized tractors, then you're in for a pretty bad ride. Because all these like that, that's all electric. All of this stuff is electric, and if it just stops working, then you get the dealer out here and it costs you $1 million just to fix it. Because of all these dumb controls. Well, not $1 million. These things, when they get, these computerized tractors, when they get old, they're terrible. Like the 108. Now we really liked that one, so we decided we kept it. But we wanted to trade it in, but the dealer said that one just wasn't worth trading. I can focus, but you can see it right there, the 108. And I think we're going to trade the 99 in. It's in there. Look, the smallest Kubota we have. We're going to trade that one in. I think in the winter we'll get a brand new one. It'll have the DEF system just like this one. Because that 99 it's a good tractor. It doesn't have computers in it. So I want to keep it. But I think for the dealer said they would take that one. I think for the good of the farm we'll trade it in. But it is a nice tractor. But I have to trade it in. Well, they do anyway. We'll see what happens. There's an old quad. There's an old quad in the boneyard down there. It's the same model as this one. And I want to bring it up into the yard with the tractor, and then I can take parts off of it. this quad here, I think it's the same exact model as this one. This one has what it looks like a 4-wheel drive cable, and I see this one here. It has the same thing, and it has a little cap, just a aluminum cap there. So what I'm thinking is I might be able to buy a new one of these for this quad, and then I'd be able to switch it from 2-wheel to 4-wheel drive. And that's what I'm thinking. And I did. I tried to save the winch out of this one, but the winch was junk, and I think this one is a bit older than that one, but I'm sure this one's. It couldn't have been. It's not a huge difference, and look at the difference in the quality. I mean, this one was a farm quad, so it was likely used a lot harder, and it was never looked after properly. So that's why it's so rusty. But the seals on the back differential is gone. Or that's not a differential, that's a gearbox. Differential is the gearbox, so there's the drive shaft, and then it turns gears in there, and this gear turns the entire axle, and that's a drum brake. It's locked on. But if it was a differential is, like this here, that's a differential. See, there's 2 axles, and then the drive shaft comes into the 2 axles, and then when you turn, then the differential allows one wheel to spin faster than the other, or one wheel can stop and the other one will still keep spinning. But yeah, this quad was the one I grew up with. This one, when I was like 7 and 8, I drove it around. My friend drove it around. It sounded really cool. I like that. And then I think this is the first snowmobile I ever bought. I bought it probably about 3 years ago or so. And this one worked for a while. I got it for only $600, and that is a good price on a mountain snowmobile like this. The only problem is they don't make parts for it, and this thing is a collector's item. It is extremely rare. I'd almost never seen another one like it. The same model. It's a 600cc. Got it for $600. And the guy that sold it to me, he said his son used it. And he must have driven it pretty hard because it didn't really work well. I mean, it worked pretty well for quite a while when I had it. And then it started having problems. And then something was wrong with the engine. It didn't quite have a 600cc power. And yeah, and then I crashed it I kind of fell off of it. Everybody falls off snowmobiles. Don't be embarrassed if you do. I fell off of it, and it kept rolling down a hill and smashed into the bush. And then another thing that happened is the gravel got stuck in the track, and then it wouldn't turn. And I just kind of drove it. I didn't really think that it was that. And the belt snapped. And what happened is this thing had so much power. The belt got tangled in there. And it started whipping around, and it beat. You can see it beat a slit in the bottom. It destroyed all that wiring there for the lights. And that was a satisfying fix. I was able to, I had to put new wires in there, and it took me a long time. I was able to get all the gauges and the lights working again. And then it worked for another winter. I think it had a few problems, and then it had some random ignition problem where it just wouldn't have spark sometimes. But it didn't like go and stall and stop. It just, when you go to start it up, it just doesn't have spark. Couldn't figure out what it was. It was probably a stator, and then I figured, well, this thing is I probably can't keep riding it for much longer. And then it just got stuck. Like, the problem with these kind of middle-sized mountain snowmobiles is they get stuck way too often. And this thing would get stuck, it wouldn't have power. And then it didn't have spark. I looked all over, I couldn't figure out what was wrong with it. And at the time, we had no one else to work on this. no, I wasn't going to go charging Cycle North. And at the same time, I didn't make parts for him. And then magically, it just started again. It ran, and then turned it off. And then, like, after I was done using it, and then when I went to start it again, it didn't have spark, so I was considering just parking it here forever. And then, yeah, and it didn't have spark, and the pull starter broke a few times. I was able to get that fixed at the dealer, actually. And then wouldn't have spark, and then I think I tried to start it or something, and it didn't run. It didn't have it. Well, actually, and then I found, and then it had spark, but it wouldn't start. It was like flooding over and over and over again, and I dried it out for like a week, but then when I went to, all the gas should have evaporated that was in there, and then it was just so badly flooded, I never got it running, and then I think, yeah, and then, I was moving it. Yeah, I moved it out of the barn. I think I was going to pull it backwards, and then it flipped over and it destroyed it completely. Junk. It broke the handlebars, it smashed up the hood. What happens is you don't want to pull any snowmobile like this backwards out of a little hill. It wasn't going very fast. Tipped it over. It just flipped over and kind of destroyed the whole thing. And then the handlebars broken, and I just forgot about it. Well, actually, yeah, the handlebars broken, and I thought, well, if it runs, I might be able to sell it. And then I tried to start it, and that's when it flooded and wouldn't unflood, so I just gave up on it, and that's why it's here. And then when I moved it, some of that was destroyed. And then when I moved it down here with the tractor, that's why all this other stuff is destroyed on it. But I only got it for $600, and I'm sure I think there was a lot of times where I've gotten it stuck, and there was a lot of times where it broke down, and there was always something wrong with it, so. And I just figured it just wasn't that good of a machine, but. And then they didn't make parts for it, so I just could not keep it going. And these ones, I tried to take them apart, and I just could not fix these ones. And I didn't want to take the whole. I just figured these were not worth fixing. No, they were nice sleds, but I drove each one of them once. That one, I think, had some sort of a compression problem. And then this one, and the main clutch, as I was trying to, I tried to get one of those things to screw into it to pull the clutch off, and it stripped it out in there. And then I tried to pry it off, and it broke it. So I figured at that point, if the clutch had broken, there's no point fixing these. And I got both of these for $1,000, and they were both running, this one was running. What happened is, the guy who sold these scammed me a bit. He got them running. I think he bought them off of a farm. They were sitting for years and years and years. These are both 40-year-old sleds. He got them running. He didn't really use them at all. And then, that's the scam. You got to use them and make sure they work before you sell them. And then, when I had them, I rode him a little bit, and then the seals blew, and then, I didn't know what was going on with it. And then I rode it a little bit more, and then I rode it, and then the seals were just really bad. And then it still kind of ran, but it didn't really run, and then the seals just blew it, and it wouldn't run at all. And then, yeah, it just been sitting around. I got so annoyed with them, I got tired of looking at them. And they broke down the first time. They both quit. And at the beginning of winter, I didn't know how to fix them. We didn't know any mechanics other than the dealers, so I gave up on these. So, but every snowmobile I've ever driven has never been any good. This thing, it either had no power, or the clutch was malfunctioning on it, or something's always off, or they don't start, or they get stuck. And I've gotten snowmobiles stuck so many times, I've gotten kind of tired of it. it just really isn't that much fun getting them. No, so I just kind of stopped riding them. But there's only one snowmobile that I will buy if I find one for a good price, and that is the Skidoo Tundra 200cc. And my late uncle, he kind of bought half of one for the farm, and so he bought half of it, and I think something like that, and then he's the one that kind of uses it and fixes it, and my cousin uses it. And it was bought as a utility snowmobile, so it wouldn't really make sense for me to ride it for fun, so I never rode that one. But that one, when we really needed it, we didn't have the Bearcat, and the Bearcat we've had for 3 years. That's a utility snowmobile, and it's a ripoff, and completely. That snowmobile has got 500cc, and it's huge. It's almost longer than that car there. And that snowmobile cannot go anywhere without getting stuck. So, and then it broke down. It had a few problems. So it was at the mechanic, and ridiculously, it sat at the mechanic for 2.5 years. So we never had one. And then sometimes I'd ask my uncle if I could use it. Like, me and my other uncle were getting firewood. So then I asked my uncle who had the Tundra snowmobile, and if we could borrow it, because if it's at the time we only had one tractor out in the bush, and if it got stuck, then we'd have to walk all the way home. So he gave me permission to ride that Tundra out there, and that snowmobile, it could ride, and it's only a 200cc, about the size of that thing, and that's a car. That frame has been here for years. It was not. It was a neighbor's snowmobile. He gave it to my uncle to fix it, and he couldn't fix it, and then it just a piece of scrap metal that's been around here for years. Obviously there's nothing left of it, but and then when I rode that snowmobile out, you could like ride it in almost 3 feet of snow, and it's only a 200cc Tundra, shallow track like this one, or a long track. But what's good about the 200cc Tundra snowmobiles? I don't think they make them anymore. They make the same thing, but it's a bit different design. But with the old ones, they have an unusual amount of clearance. Like the skis have, they're a little bit lifted, and the track is also lifted quite a bit for being a small snowmobile. That's why so if you're going to get an old, smaller snowmobile, I would go with the 200 Tundra, or Skidoo Tundra, yeah. Apparently those are really good models, and if I buy another snowmobile, I'm not buying it to be a piece of junk. I paid almost nothing for that one. I paid almost nothing for those ones, but if I buy one, like this thing, I spent money on it, and it's a good machine, and I'm not going to abuse it much, or I'll try, like this one here, it was intended more for utility work. It's not like a play toy. Same thing with this one. This is
I meant to say quad. I don't know why I said snowmobile.
So, yeah. And this one, yeah, I rode it around, and over time, it kept breaking down, and we took it to we had a friend who was a mechanic. Now, up to date, he is a logger, so he's no longer available to fix her stuff. And he fixed that, and he said this one is almost at the end of its life. And then we had it back here. I rode it for a little while longer, and then it started having problems pretty quickly, and then I tried to fix it. I got a couple of new parts for it, and was not able to fix it, so I took some of the other parts off of it. Like I took the front, I regret, like there is some of the front rack, I regret throwing it out. I think I did end up getting rid of it because I thought I'd never use it, but I really should have kept it, then I can use it on that machine. But there's still an awful lot of good parts on here. You got a couple spare tires, you got a whole engine, CBC shaft, and front differential, and brake, bunch of the brake parts and the throttle assembly. And there's still a lot of good parts on this machine. There is not much. Like, actually, one thing I'm about to, that's why I came here for, is I'm going to see if I can take the needle valve out of that carburetor, because this one has a bad needle valve, and it leaks a bit, so you have to turn the fuel off when you're not running it. I'll see it, and like I think the starter's blown, but I thought it was good. I mean, there's still lots of good parts on this machine. So mainly engine parts, and I think they still make they still make parts new for this machine. So this one will be around a long time. I'll probably have that for 20 years. But there's still some good parts on this, like, stuff like that. You can bend that back if you wanted to. And you got, the brake and the reverse controls. The switches going. I'm also thinking of getting a new kill switch, because this one's kind of faded and the plastic is weak. But yeah, this one is still got good parts. So yeah, I think I had planned on just scrapping it, but that's why I kept these. I didn't scrap them, because this one here, you got a whole engine, and the muffler and the exhaust is still good. There's a clevis on there, but I'm not going to try to take the clutch off. It'll probably, well, even if I get the clutch off, I don't know what I'd use it for, but then you have stuff like that. And then I think the gas tank is still good on it as well. And the seat is, if I really need a seat for something, I got a seat. But the track and the track frame are almost brand new. And I think that's, when I bought it, that's what the guy replaced before I bought it. He put a new track on it. I'm not sure where he got it, but yeah, the track frame and the track is still good. So you can use that for something. And these ones, the track and the track frame is still good. The engines have decent parts on them, but I'm not fixing them. It's too big of a job. And to pay someone to do it, I don't think it's worth a machine. And the other biggest problem is, these would be fun to drive in like 2 feet of snow, but when I did have these running kind of before, and I tried to drive it in a little more than 2 feet of snow, and they just don't like it. They're too small. So the reason they're here all busted up is when I moved them with the tractor, they get like that. And I just kind of dumped them here. These ones are too small. They're very old, and the seals blew on them both, and that's a big job. And and the clutch is broken on this one, so there's really no point fixing those. If I find a good snowmobile if I find a Tundra 200 for a good price, I may consider buying it. But I've had more bad luck than good luck with any snowmobile I've ever had, or we've had. And that's what my grandpa said too. They've had a few snowmobiles over the years, and he said all they do is get stuck. They're no fun unless snowmobiles fit into 3 categories. They're either lemons, or they get stuck, or they're way too expensive. And that's what we've had to deal with every time we think of a snowmobile. It's too expensive, gets stuck, or it's a lemon. So unless you find a real good one that's in good shape. Like this thing. This thing is old. No computers in it, which is nice. And it's in almost brand new shape. So that's why I bought it. I do like it a lot. It's a really good quad. It's nice and small. The only thing is, for going in the bush, you'd want to, on the other quad, I welded some metal here. You'd want to weld or bolt or weld some metal there. And you'd want to, give it more protection out here. Cut rebars. And that's why I really should not, these parts were on there. I had the same parts on there, same model. But they were just sitting around in the way, and I did get rid of them, but I really shouldn't have gotten rid of them because then I could put them on here. Or actually, I did end up cutting them, so it wouldn't matter. But yeah, but this one is not. The other ones are gonna be for the bush. This one is. I'm not intending it for really hard bush use. I do take it in the bush on the trails, but this one isn't really meant for that. Well, this one can do it, but that's just not what I'm going to do with it. The other quads are newer and they're more protected. I've done work to them. I made a custom bumper for both of them. They don't have a winch, but I've hardly ever used a winch. And then the Grizzly, that's the quad that that's more like the bush quad of our farm, because that one, you can see it dripping right there. And it's on. So you got to turn the fuel off every time. But yeah, the Grizzly is more the bush quad. So I could almost weld that. That's for an old stove, a wood stove. It looks like a good bumper. You can almost weld that on there, but it's not strong enough.